Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to have Kait Boyle. She is the 2018 World 24-hour solo champion. She's joining me here today to talk about all things 24-hour. She's joining us in Italy for this race to try and regain that crown. She's an incredible individual. She's a multiple record holder. She's an advocate and an environmental champion. She's an incredibly experienced bikepacker, and she goes wicked quick on a mountain bike, monitoring races such as Old Pueblo and the 24-hour race in Scotland. Thanks so much for joining us, Kait. How are you feeling?
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here. I feel really good today, I think, because it's our first warm, sunny day here in Idaho. It's been snowing more in May than anything else. So today's great because it's warm.
So your history up into 24-hour racing is pretty spectacular. You've been bikepacking enough to gain the experience to write books, to create, bikepacking advocacy organizations, to co-found a whole bunch of that sort of movement. You've bikepacked across 5 continents. Now, we won't go into that. People can find that sort of information online. It's incredibly compelling stuff, should you want to get into it. But I'm really interested to know, through all the bikepacking you've done, the thousands of miles that you've ridden across multiple continents and domains, you'd have to be incredibly fit, you'd have to be logistically really sound and mentally really tough. What have you brought from bikepacking across the 24-hour racing? And arguably, what have you left behind? What are the differences there?
Well, from bikepacking to 24-hour racing, I've left behind my sleeping bag. I think that's one of the biggest things is just all the gear. Like, I think that bikepacking teaches you kind of like self-sufficiency and figuring out how to problem solve when things get hard, because of all those trips in different parts of the country, or all those trips in different countries around the world, every single trip, there's been a time where I wanted to go home and for the trip to just end there. And the reality is, in the middle of the Alps or Patagonia or Japan, like, you can't just click your heels and end up back home in the United States. You have to figure out how to at least get through the next day and probably the next week until there's actually an international airport. And by then things have gotten better. And that's ultimately, I think, what 24-hour racing comes down to, is remembering that it will get hard inevitably, and that's why we're there. But it will get better too. And in the 24-hour format, when you're going in laps and you have a crew, you have that ability to click your heels pretty quickly and end up in a place where you're sitting in a chair, if you're lucky, with the people who love you, who are taking care of you, and you can stop. And so I think that the most powerful lesson that I've taken from bikepacking to 24-hour racing is that ability to come within myself and realize it'll get better if I just keep going.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's actually a great segue into, tough times are better times, and that trough that you've gone through. Now, incredibly, you were the world champion at the time, and you had a significant accident on snowy roads on Christmas Eve of 2018. And for the listening audience, forgive me as I go into some detail here. Very serious car accident, and it left you with a shattered pelvis, a broken sacrum, a broken leg in your bone, bone in your leg, the fibula, and a ruptured bladder. Now, for the uninitiated, breaking a sacrum and particularly rupturing the bladder is really hard to do. You have to get hit really hard for that to happen. To end up with a shattered pelvis and all those sort of things, it puts you in external fixation for a while. You spent a long time going through that. Now, coming from the highs of being a world champion to the lows of asking yourself all those incredible questions, can you take us through that journey and how did you come out to be where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, being now 3.5 years removed from that, it's kind of, I still have a hard time believing that happened. And in that timeline, because WEMBO in Scotland was at the end of October, and then just 2 months later, I was in the ICU. And so it was really like one of the highest highs of being like, oh, I'm the best in the world on this certain day at this one thing, to then I can't walk. I don't know if I'm going to walk again, let alone race the bike. But I think that just what I've realized in all the time from just the ICU to the wheelchair to learning to walk again to biking to now still 3.5 years later being like, well, my body's different. I think have been really grateful for all the time on the bike racing and bikepacking in non-competitive ways, because all those lessons that we learn when we choose to put ourselves in challenging positions, then we have at least the foundation of the tools to cope with things that are really hard, like potential, like facing that you were in a potentially life-threatening accident and you might not walk again, you know, like that is a load that's way different than, oh, I didn't eat enough in the last hour. But it takes really the same mindset and the same ability to look at what it is that you can control in the situation, what it is that you can't control, and choosing to do the best with what you have been given, and to really lean on the support of the people around you. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about 24-hour racing, is that like, yes, we race solo, but we're just the ones riding the bikes. There are so many people, whether they're there in your pit or that have been supporting you in reaching that goal. And so it's really similar with a traumatic injury as well, where yes, you're the ones with the broken bone or whatever the injury is, but there are so many people who are there to really help you get through that challenge.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think there's a certain point through that journey which you recounted in, I think, one of your other interviews, and that was a scenario where I think the doctor who was treating you at the time said, yes, I think you can race a bike again, and you grabbed onto that and took it and ran with it. Did that have like a flick of the switch effect, or was that just galvanizing what you were kind of already believing?
I think that in that moment of being so devastatingly broken, I was open to like any glimmer of hope. And I think that's part of some sort of personality trait that also translates to being willing to race ultra endurance distances, of just seeing like somewhere out there is a possibility for something really incredible to happen. In that case, it would be to race ultras again. And to see through all of the darkness, metaphorically, or just like all of the work and the challenges and to get that it would take to get there. And I think in a way it's this like blind optimism. Like I think that in that hospital room, if he was like, you can race a bike again, and this is excuse me, and this is exactly what it'll look like. And if he had gone through like every single day of physical therapy and EMDR and rolfing and having tendonitis like 3 times or something like that, and just all what has unfolded in those 3.5 years, like I don't know if I would have done it. Like I think I really would have questions if it'd be worth it. But just being able to see like, oh yes, I want this and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to recover to that level, that has been what has anchored me to those days of it feeling like a slog.
Yeah. It's still, my eyebrows still go up when I think about that sort of stuff, because it would have been, yeah, you don't wish that on anyone, but you do wish them to come through if that does happen. It's still, yeah. Now, in the lead up to Scotland, ironically for a bikepacker, you've got a lot of intervals. Like you do a lot of speed work. You're not out crushing 1,400 kilometers a week. It seems to have a lot of structure. And it seems to rhyme now in your lead up to Italy. Can you tell us around how you approach your training and what are the numbers you're trying to hit or the feelings you're trying to achieve to let you know that you're ready for the start line?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a couple different approaches to ultra racing or long distance training, and a lot of the camp is in the like, to ride far, you ride far. And I think I have ridden a long ways in my life. And I think that what I've realized is that when I ride fast, I can then raise the speed at which I can ride far. And I think that there's also just kind of like an athletic maturity where even with a big car accident, like I know my body has pedaled for a lot of miles in the last decade plus. And so there's still that base, even through having a stint where I couldn't walk. And so I think that like my approach is adopted through my coach and teammate, Kurt Refsnyder, and it's to normalize difficult. And I think at this point, like going out and riding a full day at a casual or moderate endurance pace is like difficult in some ways, but what's really difficult is like maybe taking that full day ride and turning it in half and making it like really hard, and including like, yeah, intervals more or less in some structure throughout the ride. And it's interesting because like it is structure, but it also doesn't feel too structured in that like I don't forego why I ride a bike to go do hill repeats. Like I work them into rides that inspire me. And so with that, like there's just this element of being really excited and motivated to be like, oh, I want to like ride hard up this climb because I want to get to the top and see what it looks like. And like I think that one of the reasons I love racing is I do love going fast, and especially on trail. And so a lot of my training is just like coming up with hard rides that will have some different kind of training goal within it that has something to do with like whatever zone I'm in and the amount of time I'm out. And I think that also like I am at a point in my life where it is my job, and like I want that to be fun and to feel lucky every day that I get to do that for work. And so I end up on my bike generally like around 20 hours a week, you know, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. But that also gives me time to take care of myself off the bike. And that is one of the biggest things that has changed. And it's probably also part of aging. But I have to spend a lot more time taking care of my body when I'm in order to be able to perform on the bike as a result of that car accident. So that's also another reason I can't just go ride for 10 hours a day every day, because then I wouldn't have time to do PT or stretch or get body work or see, all the things. So
yeah, that's actually really interesting. One of the other things I wanted to throw in as an ad hoc is you appear to have relatively good skills for someone who's come across from bikepacking. So I think, you know, stalking the internet for information, you did some short course XCO races where, yeah, sure, the top end wasn't going to match with the elite pros. You still finished really high up the pecking order there. But when you got to the technical stuff, and then I believe there were some enduro style technical challenges in that, you monstered those. I'm interested to know where you got that skill from. Is that just something that comes from all the time on the bike, or did you actively practice to get that?
A little bit of both. Like I think people ask me this, and it's hard because I've only learned to mountain bike once, like as my own progression, and so it's hard to compare to what maybe would be more traditional. But I think that some of the things that have been huge players have been bikepacking and like seeking out backcountry rides where you just inevitably end up on trails that maybe aren't the best, like horse trails, eroded hiking trails, not very maintained trails. And, you know, generally it's more fun to ride than to walk downhill. And so I have just, by having the volume of time on those trails that comes with bikepacking, because you inevitably just are outside all day when you're bikepacking. I've ended up kind of learning to skitter my way down things. And then when suddenly you don't have bags on and through the last decade too, my bikes, I've gone from like a rigid single speed to geared full suspension bikes with dropper posts, like
Yeah.
that helps the progression. And then the other part that I've done, mostly unabashedly and hopefully mostly been accepted for, is just like try to keep up with people who are better than me. And it's pretty, I know that it is hard, especially I think for women, to do that and to be like, hey, I want to come, and like you might have to wait at the bottom, but thank you, because I want to, you know, and that has eventually led to just keeping up and trying and yeah, it's been really fun. And I think that just the love for being in wild places is what continues to draw me to challenging trail. And now it's like my favorite thing about racing. And I'm starting to wish that some courses were just more technical, because it's mountain biking, you know.
When I was in Finale, I came up on this French girl, and we're just about to hit the technical section. And I was desperately trying hard to get in front of her so that I could hit the technical section, because I backed my own abilities. I was pretty good. And she was desperately trying to stay in front of me. And she got there, she got in front of me. And then she hit the technical section and just disappeared. She was so fast. I was like, wow, that was incredible. So I ended up using some of her lines, because I watched where she went. I ended up using some of her lines throughout the course of the race. It was actually kind of exhilarating in the end. So I just wanted to throw that in, that, yeah, guys should realize that girls are fast, you know.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it can be really hard when people don't want you to pass, but it can be so rewarding, you know, when you get to be in that position of someone being like, whoa, you ride really well. I had a blast following you. That's like one of the best compliments at this point in my life that I could get.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
I think
like, this is my craft, you know?
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm feeling uphill to go downhill.
All right, so we'll get back on track. Now, back to equipment and logistics. Can you tell us what's in your bag of kit, the bike, the lights, any nutrition, any equipment that you're taking over? And in your mind's eye, what does your pit team look like? And what does your food table look like, your equipment area look like in a perfect world? What are you taking for Finale to help you win?
Oh, this is a fun question, because right now I leave on Thursday and today's Sunday. And I haven't done a 24 since Scotland. So it's been 3.5 years. So I have this huge list, and I think that I have everything covered, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll see when I get there. But I think that the main thing, I feel very lucky to be supported by companies that enable me to have 2 bikes that are fully set up identically. And those will be Pivot Mach 4 SLs. And so I'm going to bring 2 bikes, and kind of regardless of whether it's racing in the desert in Arizona or racing in pouring rain in Scotland, I've had just really good luck with having just a planned system of rotating bikes. And then that way, in a way, my pit can just be proactive, and I don't need to kind of suddenly be like, okay, I'm changing bikes now. It's just depending on the length of the course and the lap times, I'm just rotating. And it also keeps me kind of honest to food and water. Like, I just end up having to finish what's on my bike. And that's part of my strategy. It's really, ultra endurance racing is like your body, your mind, and eating. And so what I'm bringing over from here, in addition to the bikes, will be kind of clothing for any condition, because while it is supposedly going to be warm, like, I'm sure that it could be cold and rainy. Like, you know, it's like climate change is real, and at this point, who knows what's happening. It's snowing here every day in May. It was just 90 degrees in New Hampshire, which is pretty far north in the US. So I am bringing whatever I need to stay comfortable in any imaginable conditions. And kind of like Scotland. And then I am going to bring over some nutrition. and then I'll probably about half. So I rely on Goo Energy for my liquid hydration, gels, chews, electrolyte. And so I'll bring that stuff over because I train with it. I know that it works for me. I know how much I need. And for a 24, that'll probably be about half of my calories, maybe a tiny bit more. It kind of, especially with it being hot, likely hot. And then I'll supplement the rest of it with real food. And so I think that that's probably going to be like pizza, cookies. If I can figure out a way to have gelato, I think that would go really well for me. I just don't know how to keep it cold. So that's going to be a goal of the week that I'm there, is figuring out how to have gelato handy. Potatoes. Yeah, I mean, I haven't ridden in Italy since 2014. So, we have like our traditional foods in our mind, but in general, it'll just be like whatever sounds good. And it'll probably be very carby and easy to eat.
Mm.
I don't French, but like croissants, I think that sounds good. They're probably a mess because they flake, but
well, it's one of the things that I found when I race. So when you go into the supermarket, there's all these carbohydrate heavy, really nice looking pastries that you can sort of buy in a 14 pack. And I had the time of my life eating in Italy. It was fantastic. It was almost like they were designed for the discerning 24-hour racer. Incredible.
I think it's going to go really well. It'll be like a table with some Goo products and then pastries, pizza, the gelato thing if it works out.
Yeah. So excellent. So let's talk about strategy for a moment. How do you generally approach? I think you, Gaia, Kait Penglaze, for WEMBO in Scotland were relatively close for a while, and then you broke away, just pure strength and determination, and ultimately all the preparation that went into you getting there. How do you imagine yourself approaching finale? It'll be a different race. Have you allowed yourself to think ahead to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the cool things about not having a start list, which maybe there is one, I just don't know where it is, but I have no idea who's going to be there. And which I was thinking about today. And I think that the cool thing about that is that ultimately, like, I approach ultras as it is my own race. And my goal is based on, like, all my goals are attainable regardless of who shows up and how strong they are, whether they're stronger than me or have a better day or whatever. And so for me, like, a well-executed race is mostly around pacing and taking care of myself and kind of like having this general sensation or feeling of just like time passing without it really being aware of it, because I'm having so much fun and I'm taking good enough care of myself that yes, there are lows, but like you move through them more kind of effortlessly. And it's kind of hard to describe. But so what that really looks like strategy wise is just getting really grounded in the idea and the belief that 24-hour racing starts 12 hours in. And not caring about what place I'm in until then. Like, I'll probably try, and it'll be convenient not speaking Italian, but like, I'm gonna ask my pit to not tell me what place I'm in or how far back I am for 12 hours. And then once, I guess, midnight or whatever time is 12 hours in, that's when I want to be feeling good and feeling like actually that's when I can start pushing more. And in reality, pushing more probably means maintaining the same pace. But that's when I'll just be working to continue to ride really smoothly and like metaphorically not let the wheels fall off.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. On the speaking Italian thing, it's kind of one of the things I found just by default, and I did Italian at school, so I was sort of prepped up for this. You will probably be one of the people who will pass a lot of people, and I recall Corey Wallace passing me during the race, and we were stuck behind a group of people, and he was saying, "Passo, passo." which doesn't mean anything in Italian. It actually means stick. And so, of course, they weren't moving. And so I yelled from behind. I said, scusi, alla passare, alla sinistra, per piacere, which is still mangled Italian, but it goes to say, excuse me, it would please me most if I could pass on your left. And they all got out of the way. That was incredible. So if there's one thing I suggested is learn how. May I pass on your left?
Totally. Yeah, I think I'm gonna write on like electrical athletic tape like in Italian, because I'm not gonna remember it 12 hours in.
Yeah.
I won't even remember it an hour, and I'm horrible with language. But I was thinking of writing down some of the words that I need to remember.
Yeah.
On grazie.
Grazie.
I'll just be writing along saying thank you.
Excellent. Okay, now to your sponsors. You mentioned Pivot Mac 4s, Mac 4 SLs. Now, just quickly on that, will they be emblazoned with the amazing colorway that you had for Scotland? You had a great Stars and Stripes colorway on those pivots, and you're taking the same bikes, or at least bikes in the same colorway.
So one of them will have the Stars and Stripes. I'm really excited about it. And I also ride for Industry 9, which is a US based wheel and hub maker. And they anodize their hubs and spokes. Right. And so the Stars and Stripes bike conveniently has red hubs. And then the other Mach 4 is a blue, like a light blue frame color, and then the wheels are rainbow wheels. And so I have my Stars and Stripes bike and my rainbow bike.
Right. Lovely.
Which for me is just like reminds me of like what I can do.
Yeah,
there's
that's
like
empowering.
Yeah.
So sponsors, Industry 9, Pivot. Anyone else you'd like to thank for helping you get to this point?
Yeah, so Revelate Designs is a bikepacking company. They make bags, and in addition to I'm not going to be carrying a seat bag or a handlebar bag, but I will. I do keep my food in a little top tube bag. I find it easier to get my hand in and out of from the bars to the top tube than into a jersey pocket. I think I've just not raced with a jersey enough to be very competent with it. I have this fear of my hand is being stuck in my back. And they've been incredibly supportive in helping me have a crew over there. And then, I mean, the thing that I feel lucky for with my sponsors from like Pivot and Industry 9 and Revelate and to like Kuat and Ride with GPS and Shimano and 9.8. And I mean, there is a list, and that is like this whole team that has made not just this race possible, but me going from world champion 2018 to shattered pelvis through a pandemic to back at this start line. And that's kind of a long time to continue to believe in someone. And all of those sponsors have either stayed with me since 2018 or come on board during that time. And so that just feels really special, because I feel like and then beyond the sponsors, there's like the people who are coming to crew for me, which includes my physical therapist that I rolled in with in a wheelchair with a catheter. Like, she's just flying herself over there to help and to support, because like this vision of getting back to this specific race as like this sandwich bookend of like world championship, 24-hour racing, car accident, and then 3.5 years later, which is not what anyone planned, another one,
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's
for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible that you've got so much support, but at the same time, I think you've from what I can gather and from talking to you, you're an amazing ambassador for the sport. Makes sense for companies to get behind you. We're really excited here at WEMBO that you're going back. I think this is an incredible celebration of 24-hour racing. The community is awesome. You being there is going to help the whole environment fizz and froth. And finale in and by itself is an environment which just makes people happy, makes people celebrate. And having you there, I think, is going to be extra cause for that. I'm here with Kait Boyle. Had an amazing chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck for finale, and looking forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Oh, you're going to be there. That makes me really happy. I can't wait. I think one of the things, you didn't ask me what I'm most excited about, but I'm just going to tell you why. Like, Scotland was super cool. It was really rugged and tough, and it was very akin to the kind of backcountry experiences. And finale just looks like this incredible and like energy of a bike event. And there's just something like about cycling in Europe that is really popular, and people are excited about it. And I don't know, I would imagine this isn't staged, but all the pictures I see of finale, like there are people everywhere. And I'm really excited to be a part of that, especially in the coming through, hopefully through a pandemic where there just has not really been that sort of environment for really anyone. And so I'm excited to share that with everyone on course.
Yeah, it might be another word that you'll have to understand in Italian. It's bye, because you'll hear it a lot. Bye, 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 which is go, 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 go. Cool. Yeah, and they yell it. Yeah, beautifully. Again, thanks so much. It's a real pleasure talking to you today, Kait Boyle.
Thank you.
All right.